everyone, welcome back to my class. This is Rumana Ali. I hope you all are doing well. In today's class, we are going to discuss about the topic how the muscle contraction is going to happen. What is the mechanism that is behind the muscle contraction? So in the last session, I have explained you a little bit about the muscle contraction, that when a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine is released by the neurons, it reaches the muscle cell and it sends some signals to the muscle cell in order to get contracted. So when the acetylcholine reaches the plasma membrane of the muscle cell, at that time there are some receptors that are present here in this T-tubules of the muscle cell. Receptors are found. So these receptors, that takes up the signal from the neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine. So to accept the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, some specialized receptors are present, and we call that receptors as ACH receptors, the receptors that can accept this acetylcholine neurotransmitter, which is a chemical, and this send the signals to the muscle cell. Now when the acetylcholine enters into the muscle cell, when it is received by the receptors of the muscle cell, now what happens? The sodium which is present outside the muscle cell, this sodium will enter into the muscle cell. It starts entering the muscle cell, and the sodium, when it enters into the muscle cell, automatically it will make the muscle to get contracted. But before the muscle gets contracted, due to the entry of the sodium into the muscle cell, the release of calcium is going to happen. These are called as myofibrils. Inside the myofibrils, a part is present that is called as sarcomere. In that sarcomere, different proteins are found, like thick filament and thin filaments are present, in which the different proteins are found. Due to the attachment of that protein, the calcium it gets releases, and due to the entry of sodium and release of calcium, the muscle gets contracted. Now, as soon as the sodium enters into the muscle cell, depolarization is a process. The entry of sodium from the interstitial fluid into the muscle cell is called as depolarization. So the cell gets depolarized. After the depolarization, release of calcium would occur. Here in the muscle cell, reticulum is present, and the reticulum which is found in the muscle cell, we call these reticulum as sarcoplasmic reticulum. So these sarcoplasmic reticulum which are found in our muscle cell, it releases calcium. The calcium which is released by the sarcoplasmic reticulum, it enters into the sarcomere. This is a myofibril. These are myofibrils which are found inside the muscle cells, and in these myofibrils you can find a substance called sarcomere, which shows you thick and thin filaments, and these thick and thin filaments are made up of different proteins. So these proteins helps to bind with that of the calcium. So let us see the enlarged structure of a sarcomere, how the binding of the different proteins would occur. Now let us see how the different proteins that are present in the sarcomere helps to bind the calcium. When these proteins binds the calcium, at that time only the muscle gets contracted. So here, when the proteins binds to the calcium, they form cross bridges, and this is called as sliding of filament. The filament, it changes its shape and then binds to the calcium molecule, calcium ions. So here in the sarcomere you can find a protein like myosin, actin is present. Here this one is called as tropomyosin, and these proteins are called as troponin. So the main proteins that are responsible to bind with that of calcium are troponin. Troponin can bind the calcium ions, but for the binding of the calcium ions, firstly actin and myosin should form a bridge between them. They should form a linkage between them, and we call that linkage as cross bridge or cross arm. So how they can bind with each other? there is nothing sticky filament or nothing sticky substance present in between these two proteins, then how they are going to attach, how they are going to bind with each other? They can bind with each other with the help of ATP. So this actin, this myosin, it will uses the ATP from the surrounding. Then when it uses the energy molecule called ATP, at that time it can stretch itself towards upward. When it stretch itself towards upper side, then it can easily bind to that of actin molecule. So once the calcium binds to the troponin, it removes this tropomyosin. The tropomyosin can get removed from this structure because of the binding of calcium to the troponin. As soon as the tropomyosin is removed, then this myosin can easily attach to the actin molecule, to the actin monomer. It can bind to the G-actin. We know now monomer of actin is called as G-actin, globular actin. So this myosin can bind to the globular actin and it forms a bridge. We call this bridge as cross arm or cross linkage. This is how the linkage will form in between the myosin and actin proteins. Due to the stretching of this myosin towards the actin, due to this cross bridge formation, the muscle get contracted. The contraction of muscle is possible due to the binding of calcium ions to the troponin and due to the formation of cross bridge between actin and myosin. This is how the muscle gets contracted. But when the muscle has to relax, at that time what happens? How this actin can comes back to its original position? It cannot come back to its original position without the utilization of ATP. It is too weak. It needs ATP even to bind with that of actin and also to release the actin molecule. So now this myosin, monomer of myosin, which binds with the actin molecule, it again uses the ATP to release, to break the cross linkage. It again uses the ATP and then comes back. This is how the relaxation of muscle takes place. Now I'll write the steps here. What are the different steps that we are going to see in the muscle contraction? Firstly, what happens? Binding of calcium with troponin. Okay, let us see all the steps that involved in the mechanism of muscle contraction. We know that neuromuscular junction means neurons releases neurotransmitter and that neurotransmitters are sent to the muscle cell in order to generate signals. That forms neuromuscular junction. So firstly, release of neurotransmitter at neuromuscular junction. Then that neurotransmitter, which neurotransmitter is released by the neurons to contract our skeletal muscle? It's acetylcholine. So acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that is released by the neurons to generate signals in our muscle cell. Now these neurotransmitters binds to the receptors that are found on the T-tubules of the muscle cell and also on the plasma membrane of the muscle cell. Due to the binding of the acetylcholine, the sodium channels which are present, they get open and sodium from the outside can move into the muscle cell. When the sodium enters into the cell, that is called as depolarization. Once the cell gets depolarized, the calcium, it gets releases from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. How the endoplasmic reticulum is present as a cell organelle in different cells. Likewise, in our muscle cell, the endoplasmic reticulum which is present, it is named as sarcoplasmic reticulum. So the calcium is released from that sarcoplasmic reticulum and that calcium enters into the sarcomere. Inside the muscle cells, myofibrils are present. In that myofibril, sarcomere is a region which is found. In that region, the calcium enters and in that region certain proteins are present, but it binds with the protein called troponin. Due to the binding of the calcium with that of the troponin, the muscle gets contracted. It shows the contraction. And then myosin is a protein which binds with the ATP. It binds with the ATP in order to get attached with the other protein, that is actin. So myosin, it forms a cross bridge by the utilization of ATP. Then once the muscle gets contracted, now when it has to come back to its original position, that means when it has to relax, at that time the breaking of cross bridges takes place. To break the cross bridge with that of the actin, myosin again requires ATP. So again the myosin uses ATP to break the cross bridge that is formed with the actin. This is how the muscle gets contracted and it gets relaxed. Now we are proceeding towards our next topic, that is skeletal system. Up till we were discussing about the muscular system, how the muscles get contracted, how the different muscles perform different functions and how they show their contraction. These were the topics that we have learned in the last sessions. Now we are going to discuss about our skeletal system. So our bones, they together join and they form a framework of our body, and we call that framework as our skeleton. So skeletal system, it is a hardened structure or a group of structures, we can say. So hardened structure or group of structures that are found, it may be external or internal. External skeletal system may also be present. Internal skeletal system may also be present in some of the living organisms. And the skeletal system, it shows the presence of either living cells or dead cells. And the main function of our skeletal system is to provide shape and protection to our body. Now let us see in which type of organism you can see the external skeletal system. When you look at your body, is it visible? Is the skeletal system visible? It's not. So obviously our body shows the internal skeletal system. The skeleton which is present in our body, it is situated, it is located inside. So we call that system as internal skeletal system. An external skeletal system is found in some of the living organisms, like in cockroach. If you see the body of a cockroach, you can find a hard structure over its body, and that hard structure is made up of chitin. It will not show any bones. The bones are not present in the body of a cockroach, but on the surface you can find a hard structure. We call that as a skeleton, and which is made up of a chitin material. So in the living organisms like cockroach, you can find the external skeletal system, and in our body internal skeletal system is present. Now our skeletal system is made up of living cells. The cells which are present in our bones, they are living, and the cells which are present in the body of a cockroach, they are dead cells. So in this way you can find both living and dead cells in the skeletal system of different living organisms. And we know that the main function of the skeletal system is to provide shape and protection to our body. Now we know that skeletal system is made up of bones. So we'll discuss the structure of bone now. So now we are going to study about the structure of bone. Based on the structure, you can see the different functions that are performed by our skeletal system. So when you look at the structure, it will be like this. This is our bone. It shows three parts. And here in the middle part, you can see a cavity. A cavity is present in the middle part of a bone. Okay, so this is the structure. Here the middle part of the bone is called as diaphysis, and this part of the bone is termed as metaphysis, and this part is called as epiphysis. So it shows three main parts: epiphysis, metaphysis and diaphysis. In the region diaphysis, a cavity is present, hollow space is present. Inside this cavity, bone marrow is present, and that bone marrow is yellow bone marrow. This bone marrow will not involve in the formation of any blood cells, but it contains a lot of fat. So this is the fat storing place, yellow bone marrow. When you see besides this, in this place, in the medullary part of our bone, this is called as medullary part. So in the medullary part of our bone, the fluid is present, tissues are found. That tissues comprises of cells. So the cells which are present in the medullary part of our bone, we call that cells as osteocytes. Oisteo means bone and sides mean cells. So bone cells are found in the medullary part of our bone. And the place of this medullary part is filled with calcium phosphate. So calcium phosphate is stored in this part of the bone along with the cells called osteocytes. Now, in the region epiphysis, some holes are present, small cavities are found. Inside these cavities, red bone marrow is found. And this red bone marrow, and the main important function of this red bone marrow is the production of red blood cells. The red blood cells can be formed with the help of red bone marrow, and this red bone marrow is present in both the sides. In the left epiphysis and also in the right epiphysis, you can find small cavities. Inside that cavities, red bone marrow is present, which helps in the formation of red blood cells. And yellow bone marrow will not involve in the formation, will not take any part in the formation of red blood cells, but it contains a lot of fat. So these are the things that you can see in the structure of our bone. Now let us look at the functions of our skeletal system. In the beginning of this topic, I told you that the main function of our skeletal system is to provide shape and support to our body, and also to protect our body. So here it helps in maintenance of the posture. We can make the different positions due to the presence of the skeletal system in our body, and it helps to protect different internal organs. So we can say it is protective in function. So the different organs are present, like lungs are present, heart is also found here somewhere. So here the sternum is present and all the ribs are covering the lungs. So in this way, the bones, they are protecting the internal organs, protecting the visceral organ, and in such a way it gives protection to our body, and it also helps in storing the different fats and minerals. Just before, while learning about the structure of bone, I told you that in the yellow bone marrow fat gets stored, and in the medullary part of the bone different minerals are present like calcium phosphate. So in this way it also acts as a storage for different fats and minerals. The bones is a storage place for different fats and minerals like calcium phosphate. And red bone marrow is also present in our bones. Total bone is not responsible for the process of red blood cells formation, but a part is present, we call that part as red bone marrow. Due to these red bone marrow is responsible for the formation of red blood cells, and it also play an important role in making our body movements. We can make the different body movements due to the presence of skeletal system, due to the bones that are found in our body. So these are some of the important functions of our skeletal system. Now we are going to discuss about human skeleton. So human skeleton shows the parts like skull. Here in the middle you can find a sternum, and at the back vertebral column is present. and these bones are called as ribs, right? So these are the different bones that you can see in the structure of human skeleton, and this human skeleton shows the two types, axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. When you place a rod in the middle of this skeleton, then what are the different bones that get attached to this rod? That bones forms our axial skeleton. When you place this rod, the skull, it touches this rod, so it can come under the axial skeleton. And even the sternum, the ribs are attaching to this rod. The vertebral column is also attaching the rod, and that's it. So ribs, sternum, vertebral column and skull. All these are the different parts that can come under the axial skeletal system. But what about appendicular skeletal system? So appendicular skeletal system involves those parts that do not touch the rod, like the bones of our hand, the bones of our legs and even the arms. So in the appendicular skeletal system we can write the bones of legs and arms, right? But there are some parts that attaches and even they are far from the rod. They are attaching the rod. If we place the rod, they are touching the rod, and even they are a little bit, some part of the bone is touching the rod and some part is away from the rod. So those bones are included in this appendicular skeletal system only, and those bones are called as girdles. The bones, the part of a bone which attach to the rod, to the axial or to the axis, and some part of the bone is not towards the axis. Those bones are called as girdles. So in the axial skeletal system, skull, ribs, sternum and vertebral column can be included, and in the appendicular skeletal system we can include the legs and arms and girdles. Girdle is of two types, pivotal girdle and pelvic girdle. Okay, so this is about the two different skeletal systems based on the bones that are situated in our skeletal system. So girdles are of two types, pectoral girdle and pelvic girdle. These two girdles are included in the appendicular skeletal system. So two systems are present, axial skeletal system and appendicular skeletal system. Axial skeletal system includes all the parts like skull, ribs, sternum and vertebral column, and appendicular skeletal system includes legs, arms and these two types of girdles. So on the basis of their location, whether it is touching the axis or not, we classify the human skeleton into two types, axial skeletal system and appendicular skeletal system. We know that our skeletal system is made up of 206 bones in total, and this human skeletal system is of two types, axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton shows the presence of skull, ribs, sternum and vertebral column. When you see the skull, then it shows 29 bones in total, like cranium. It shows the different bones like cranium, facial bones, ear ossicles and hyoid. Cranium are 8 in number, facial bones are 14 in number, ear ossicles are 6 in number and hyoid is 1. When you sum up all these bones, then it will be 29 in total. And the ribs are present in 12 pairs. So 12 pairs means in total 24 bones are present in our ribs, and sternum is one middle bone which is providing the space to the ribs to get attached, that is called as sternum. So it is present only one. And vertebral column, it is our spinal cord. It is made up of small bones, and that small bones are 26 in number. 26 plus 24, it will be 50. Then 29 plus 1, 30. 50 plus 30, total 80 bones are found in our axial skeletal system. Axial skeleton shows the presence of 80 bones. And the next one is appendicular skeleton. In the appendicular skeleton, you can find the bones like bones of limbs, and girdles. Limbs shows the bones of arms and legs. Arms contain 60 bones and our legs shows 60 bones. And you can see 4 pectoral girdles and 2 pelvic girdles. When you sum up all these, then 60 plus 60, 120, and 120 plus 6, 126. So 126 bones are found in appendicular skeleton, and axial skeleton shows you 80 bones in total. When you add this 126 and 80, then it will be 206 in total. In this way, the different bones are present in different number. When we sum up all that bones, it will be 206 in total. That forms our skeleton. That's all for today. Meet you in next class. Goodbye.